Hello, my name is Soleil and welcome back to my channel. The day has finally come. We are talking about the worst movies of 2025. These are all of the movies that I rated between 0 and 2 stars that I watched this year. These aren't specifically 2025 releases. They are films that are new to me or films that I did not remember that I have not seen for years that I rewatched and did not enjoy for X, Y, and Z. I do have 16 movies on this list, but a couple are kind of paired into a batch, which you'll understand soon. So let's talk about them. First, I need to pull up my Letterboxd to figure out what I rated some of these. I do highly recommend you follow me over on Letterboxd if you want to see my reviews of movies. If you don't know what Letterboxd is, it's just like Goodreads or Fable or Storygraph, but you are tracking the movies you watch. And it is all about quality, not about quantity, but it is really fun to see all of the different movies you've watched throughout the year and your thoughts on them. So let's see. Okay, we're gonna start off with Baby Girl, which I watched January 2nd this year, and I rated it 2 stars. This was something, and I'm saying, and just so we're clear, I'm rating the movie, not the experience, because the experience was a good gosh darn time. It was just after the new year. I saw it with one of my friends, LB, and we went to the movie theater, and the row that we were in was just women, and we had visceral reactions during this film. This movie stars Nicole Kidman and Harris Dickinson, and also somehow Antonio Banderas. It's wild. It's about a powerful CEO who puts her career and family on the line when she starts dating her intern, who is less than half her age. She's maybe 50 and he's like 20. It's a wild time, and they have kind of like a dom-sub relationship. And there's one scene where he like makes her drink a whole glass of milk, which for someone who's mostly lactose intolerant is disturbing to say the least. Like, that was the most intense part of the film. Her having to drink cow juice was a lot. Yeah, this movie, listen, I knew what the plot was going in. If you've seen the trailer, if you've seen the film, you know what this movie is going in, and yet I was just expecting a little more, I guess. This story could have really been told in an interesting way if it wasn't so cringy, if the whole thing wasn't about her just throwing her career and family out the window for this like suboptimal man. Like, this man is wearing a tank top and a gold chain and doing like this little dance at one point, which I've heard some people enjoyed. I did not. I was like, oh, other people like that part, not me. Yeah, so that was a no for me, and yet 2 stars. It could have been worse. It could have been a lot worse. Oh my god, speaking of worse, You're Cordially Invited, which looked like a really good time. This is a comedy that came out earlier this year. It has a lot of good people in it. It has Reese Witherspoon, it has Geraldine Viswanathan, it has Leanne Morgan, it has Ramona Young, and just a bunch of other people. Yes, it also has Will Ferrell, but I do not like him, which might be why I hated this movie. The whole point of this film is there are 2 different families who have booked the same wedding venue for the same weekend for a wedding. And there was a mistake, and somehow both of these units show up and realize there's been a mistake, and then somehow they have to have 2 simultaneous weddings at this one tiny venue, and no one's willing to budge. And it's supposed to be like a fun family comedy, except this movie was so stressful. Oh my god. It wasn't funny. It was just so uncomfortable about the lengths that these 2 families were going to, And I wanted it to be funny, and just none of the things that they were doing to each other were funny. It was just stressful and horrific and ruining this magical special day for all parties involved. Just none of the jokes were funny. It was just, people's lives were put at risk at some point. Yeah, this movie was a bummer. Oh my god, I rated it 1.5 stars. I hated this movie. Okay, I finally finished watching Lady and the Tramp. No. Not the original. The live action version. Yes, exactly. The film that Disney dangled in front of everyone like a fish in front of a cat to try to get everyone to sign up for Disney Plus when Disney Plus aired in 2020. Or was it 2019? I think it was the end of 2019. But they specifically, oh, it was 2019. They specifically released the live action of Lady and the Tramp exclusively on Disney Plus to try to get people to sign up. And it sucked. It sucked. Let's see. I've never been faced with a movie where I felt so disconnected from the characters. How do you make a film where you don't care about the dogs? Yeah. Oh my god. This entire film is about the dogs. At no point did I care about anything that was happening to them, which is like so bad. The animals were so photorealistic that somehow they didn't have facial expressions, really. There wasn't a lot going on, visually speaking, that portrayed their emotions. It just took all of the heart out of the film, where you felt so connected to these characters in the animated version, and in this one, that was just gone. In my review, I said, the meatball scene felt reminiscent of making your stuffed animals kiss. And I stand by that. Continuing on. So you'll notice there are quite a few films that I started, maybe just 2 actually, that I started a couple years ago and I decided to finish this year, which is similar to what I've been doing with books, which is books that I started reading and just never finished, but am interested in finishing. I was doing that with movies as well. So I did that with Lady and the Tramp. I did that with Disenchanted as well, which is a sequel to Enchanted. Aptly named. Very aptly named because I was disenchanted from this film. I gave it 1 star. I think it might be one of the worst films I've ever seen, which is really saying something. The plot was just so pointless. It literally felt like a cash grab. They were trying to enchant you with these, there it is again, enchant you with these characters that you know and love by just squeezing the ever-loving life out of them. And it's about like our main character, Giselle, is that her name? Yeah, Giselle, who turns evil for a moment during this film. That's the entire plot. And then she kind of tries to destroy her whole life. And there's chaos, and then it's just over, and like, that's it. None of the acting was good, even though there's so many amazing actors in this film. I can only imagine it's because the script was so bad. But this film is entirely a legacy sequel, just playing off the magic of the original. And it lacks all of the whimsy and magic. 1 star. Speaking of lacking whimsy and magic, I watched the Snow White remake. I gave it 2 stars. I won't be able to say anything that the entire internet has not already said, but this film lost itself both by trying to be a image recreation of the original, but also reimagine it in more feminist ways, I guess. I don't know, because they lost the plot in 2 completely separate directions, both in the fact that they were trying to recreate some of the costumes and set pieces from the animated original, which cannot work in a different format. Animated versus live action are entirely different art forms and they need to be treated as such. And her dress was the ugliest thing I've ever seen. Oh my God. There was so much opportunity to make it beautiful the way that they did for the Cinderella remake. And her bob, oh my God. Jesus. They were trying to give her a lot more agency, and they added this whole political side plot about like an uprising that just they did not flesh out at all, which could have been interesting if they'd actually committed, but they didn't commit to either keeping it as the original or diving off the deep end and just doing something completely new. For instance, The Little Mermaid. They really nailed The Little Mermaid by both sticking to some of the elements of the classic while also just expanding her story and making it more interesting, adding some little side plot tangents into the way that she was meeting the people on the island and her interest in traveling the world. It was just expanding on what was already there and making her a more fleshed out, interesting person. They did not do that with Snow White. I think it was because they were trying to take something that was made, I think in the 20s, maybe the 30s, and make it just a lot more feminist without even understanding what feminism really means. And they could have done that while still keeping it to the classic. And that is one of the problems with live action remakes. It just is so difficult to toe the line of sticking to the original essence of something while also fitting it to modern audiences. It's a difficult thing to do, and they keep doing it because they don't need to make it that good to get people sitting in theaters. I went to go see this movie in theaters. I have 2 different movie passes, so I didn't pay individually for the ticket. If I had to pay individually for the ticket, I wouldn't have gone and seen this because it did not look good from the get-go. Also, all of the discussions of them not giving roles to actors with dwarfism is just so disappointing. Them making some of the most titular characters with dwarfism CGI was, just so disappointing. It was so deep in the uncanny valley as well while you were watching it. And you could so tell which scenes were them being in a real forest and which were a CGI forest. It was so weird. Somehow they made the real forest look so drab and lifeless, and then the CGI forest looked like a drug-induced fever dream. It did not mesh well. Gal Gadot, maybe she can act even if she were, you know, a better person, but not in this film. There were a lot of songs and dance numbers that didn't need to be there. Anyways, this became a whole tangent. I gave this, I think, 1 star. Maybe it deserved, I gave it 2 stars. Maybe just for Rachel Zegler's performance overall. Maybe because it could have been worse. Who knows? Who knows? It's okay, guys. We're almost out of live action territory. I watched all of these in quick succession. And then I watched the live action Lilo and Stitch. Save me! Save me from Disney's live action hell. I know I'm doing this to myself. I know I'm watching these of my own free volition. I don't know if it's just my childhood wonder trying to stay alive, if it's my deep-seated belief that some of these really talented directors who are under Disney's thumb, either for the paycheck or because Disney is a huge company and it's, I'm sure, a privilege to work with them. But it's my deep-seated belief that maybe one of them will come out with something that is truly magical. I'm afraid for the future. Go see more original Disney films like Elio, which is in my top best movies of the year. Go check that out. I think it is. I gave it like a 4.5 stars, so it should still be in the top, but I saw a lot of good movies this year. Not that you would know from this video. Anyways, Lilo and Stitch. I had an entire film review blog post on this, which I will link down below for you if you want the nitty-gritty about how much of a disappointment this was. I will first start off by saying that Lilo and Stitch is such a, I don't know if important feels like too strong of a word, but such a strong movie in the Hawaiian community. I grew up on Maui. I was a local until I moved away for college, but Lilo and Stitch so beautifully captures Hawaiian culture in a way that so many large movies don't. There are many amazing smaller films or indie films that also do, or just other large films that came out later, but there weren't a lot in the scale of Disney when this came out in 2003 maybe. The original, I'm speaking of the original right now. The original featured Hawaiian Pidgin. It featured a lot of Hawaiian actors who were doing the voice work. It featured the children's chorus of the Kamehameha schools. It had a lot of little tidbits, including something that I think is so deeply lost from the live action, which is in the original, Lilo is taking pictures of white tourists coming to Hawaii, and she is objectifying them in the way that so many local Hawaiian kids in Hawaii feel objectified when there are tourists coming around taking pictures of everything, taking pictures of native people and making them just feel like a prize on their vacation. You know what I mean? And so she was fighting back in her own way by taking these photos of them, of these fat white tourists coming to her home. Instead of them gawking at her and her islands, she is kind of doing that in return. And it was such beautiful yet subtle commentary on the nature of the tourism industry in Hawaii and on island nations in general. Also just native cultures in general. And that was just taken away from the live action. I do think that the CGI of Stitch was very well done. He was cute, it was interesting. I do think they could have done a better job of helping the young actress, Maya Kealoha, figure out where he was because sometimes she's looking here and he's like over here, and any of the times that they're interacting, they splice and cut it very quickly. So you can kind of tell. That was fun, but all of the other aliens, like Pleakley, looked like he was something that came out of my nose. Somehow they made him look too realistic. Like, that was not necessary. I did not need to see his translucent skin and his veins. It was a little too much. Like, you can find the line. They did not find the line. They took away a lot of the interesting cross-dressing and trans identity that Pleakley kind of has in the original one. And I know that that's something the director was fighting for and lost that fight. So truly only shade to Disney. The director really did fight that fight. Then there is this one line. Listen, this is my rant review. There was this one line where they talk about some university in San Diego having the best marine biology program, which is so deeply false because it's UH Manoa. Like, UH Manoa has always been the school for marine biology. People from all across the US and all across the world go to UH Manoa for its marine biology program. So why in the hell is Nani talking about how she has to leave her family in order to go to San Diego for university? And there is something that happens at the end of this film, which I won't spoil for you if you want to watch it, but it fully counteracts the idea of aloha and family and nobody gets left behind and all of these things that we know from this movie that are being reiterated throughout this live action and then is just tossed out the window at the end. Okay, I think that covers most of my thoughts Oh, I will say, the thing that I will give the major props for is they did re-invite the Kamehameha School's children's chorus to do the new version of Hawaiian Roller Coaster Ride, which I thought was lovely. So it was a new cast of kids, and that was a really special part of the original, and I really appreciated that they did it again for this one. That's okay, that's it. I gave it 2 stars. I'm only like halfway through this list. Oh my god. Okay, next I watched Love Hurts. I gave it 1.5 stars. This is the movie with Ki Kwang that came out in February. It was a spin off of like a Valentine's Day movie, and it looked like it was going to be fun. It wasn't fun. It had a really bad script, and Ki Kwang did an amazing job acting. Listen, he took that god-awful script and he did the best that he could, but god, it was just a really bad plot. It was like a realtor who was also in some kind of like badass crime syndicate. I don't remember. I blocked this movie out after I watched it because it was so bad. It had so many big stars, and in it he goes back to his like original secret identity and fights off like a crime syndicate, like I was saying. None of it made sense. It was barely an hour and a half long and yet told no story. All these characters were a mishmash. It was just a mess. Okay, so these 3 were what I was talking about before, about these are kind of one grouping. So in anticipation of the new Fantastic Four movie, I wanted to see how far we've come, which was a really great choice. It was such a great choice, wasn't it? Rewatching all of the old Fantastic Four movies, which have been notably cited as being some of the worst movies in cinema. Yeah. So I watched Fantastic Four from 2005 and Fantastic Four Rise of the Silver Surfer from 2007. Listen, in comparison to the 2015 Fan Four Stick, as we like to call her because they put the 4 in the middle of the title, Fantastic Four, these 2 predecessors were so much better, even though they were not good. They were not good, but the 2015 one, listen, I remember, and I have frequently cited this film as being one of the worst movies I've ever seen, but I could not remember too much about it, and wow, I frequently cite this one moment in the ending of Fantastic Four. This doesn't really spoil the ending. We all know that this scene is coming, right? It is the 4 of them, right, battling the big bad, and they're each like trying and doing their own superpower, and it's not working, and each of them gets thrown down, and they're like, oh no, what can we do? And then one of them says, we can do it together. And then all 4 of them are working together, and they manage to defeat the big bad, except for the fact that the big bad is like all powerful. Like there is no way they could have beat this villain, which is a common critique I have of some superhero movies where they make their villain too powerful. And I'm like, listen, it's too much. It's not believable when they defeat them. Yeah, I'm not gonna go into much more detail. The other ones, you know. I watched Happy Gilmore 2, which I love Happy Gilmore. And I rewatched Happy Gilmore, and it was a good fun time. And Happy Gilmore 2 was so bad. I haven't seen something this bad in ages. What even was the point of making this film is my entire review. I gave it 1 star. It was just ridiculous, but not in a fun way, and so many cameos. This film existed for the nostalgia factor and the cameos, and yet did not bring an interesting script. It brought a weird script where this happens in the first 10 minutes, so I do not consider this a spoiler, but they kill off his wife in order to make this work, and it's just in the first 10 minutes. Like, his wife dies, I think he needs to put his house up for sale or something. It's so depressing. It's not funny. I'm like, oh my god, I came here to laugh, not to like feel bad for this man. Then I saw Tron Ares. one of the most anticipated films of not just the year, but the decade. I've been waiting for this movie for a very long time. I love Tron Legacy, and if you're like, Tron Legacy, rewatch it. Trust me, it's good. It's good. It got a lot of flack back in the day, but trust me, it is a good time. This film, Tron Ares, is visually stunning. The sound, incredible. The soundtrack by Nine Inch Nails, excellent. It is not quite at the same caliber as the Daft Punk soundtrack for Tron Legacy, but that's a really hard mark to hit because I listened to that album a lot. That was my top album of the year this year, not just because the sequel was coming out, but because it is most years. I listened to it to work. It's really good. It had an identity issue. The plot was not the right fit. They made it all about AI because, what's his face? God, what's that man's name? Jared Leto. Because Jared Leto wanted this movie to be made. He wanted to be the titular character. He wanted to be Ares. He wanted to be an AI, and he went all meta for the role. Not that it shows anything for his work, I guess. But the plot was all over the place, and truly, most of this film was about Greta Lee's character wanting to get with the robot, like get with the AI character. There's like some weird sexual tension between them where you're like, okay, sure. Evan Peters' character though was incredible. I watched Weapons, and it was an interesting premise, but there were a couple anachronisms in the film that just did not make sense. For instance, there's a moment where two characters are in a police car and it is nighttime, and then later a different timeline story lines up with that and it is daytime, and it literally does not match up. And I looked it up because I was like, am I missing something here? No, the director literally said, yeah, some things we just couldn't make line up, so there are just gaping plot holes. Oops. If you make an entire film that is told through multiple perspectives, that slowly tells the story over time, where all of these perspectives start to line up and you start to figure it out, you should not have a gaping plot hole that can be fixed by something so easy as just changing the daytime when something occurs. They literally just did it to have a certain jump scare then, and it pisses me off. One of the other things was just because there were so many different plot lines that we were following, it was hard to really connect with a lot of the characters, and they were really interesting characters, but it just leaves you with not caring that much by the end of the film. So I gave that one 2 stars. Then we have 2 Christmas movies that I put in the same bucket. The first one is Merry Little Xmas, and the second one is Joy to the World. Both of these were new releases, I think on Netflix. Both of these lacked holiday joy, had subpar acting, and the storylines just did not work. In the first one, Merry Little Xmas, it's about 2 exes who are divorcing for very good reasons, and then they both start dating new people and they become jealous of each other, and like that's the whole story. And it wasn't a fun holiday movie. Then Joy to the World is about a young woman who sells cookbooks, and she's kind of sold the idea of herself as this woman with a big family having the perfect holiday every time, and it's all a lie. She's single and she lives in her giant home by herself. So then when a TV crew comes to film her perfect Christmas, she has to hire fake actors to play her family, which the plot and the script was good. It was just the characters themselves left you feeling nothing. I don't know if it was the acting or maybe how the characters were written. Like the actual plot was good, but not the character writing themselves. You just weren't really that interested in these characters, and it just all came together in such a forced way. And there was also this romance that did not work, even though it had Chad Michael Murray, which you're like, how could a romance with Chad Michael Murray not work? I don't know. Then we have The Roses, which also was another comedy that came out that looked so funny. The trailer looked hilarious. I saw that trailer so many goddamn times in the movie theater. Oh my God. But it looked funny. It wasn't funny. It was depressing. It was about two people whose marriage was slowly unraveling as they began to hate each other to the point of violence. And I was waiting for it to be funny. I was waiting for these like chaotic moments to be funny, but it was just so sad. And I was like, I can't even laugh at this because it's like so deeply depressing how these children are being thrown around by this situation and their lives are literally being shaped by this. It's, oh God, I just left it feeling so empty. The last movie we're going to talk about is Wild Strawberries. This was a movie in my 2025 Criterion Challenge, which I've been trying to shave away at for the last month or two because I was so deeply behind, which if you're interested in what was on my challenge, you can check out my link to Letterboxd down below and you can find my whole list of movies along with all of the prompts for that challenge. Swedish or Danish film from 1957 about a man going on a road trip with his kind of daughter-in-law and a bunch of chaotic youths, and about him having some weird dreams and reminiscing with his past. It did not work for me. I don't know if there was just some element that I was missing. I read some critical reviews afterwards that were all raving about how interesting it was. I think there was just something missing for me. Most of him reminiscing about his past and his childhood home was about him being in love with his cousin. Maybe I'm being too critical about that, but I don't know why his cousin was in love with him. He seemed fine. He seemed just okay, and their incestuous family was interesting. I don't know. It's just, there was an interesting character arc that I did appreciate, which might bump this up from like a 2 star to a 2.5. But the entire film, I was just waiting for it to end. I don't know. It was fine. It was fine. So anyways, those were all of the books. No. So anyways, those were all of the movies that I rated between 0 and 2 stars this year that really disappointed me, that I consider to be the worst movies that I watched this year. And like I always say, this is completely subjective. This is what I did not enjoy. If you enjoyed any of these movies, I'm so happy for you. That's great, unless they're problematic. And some of these were a little problematic. So, you know, to each their own, but also, yikes. Let me know if you've seen any of these, if you dislike them as much as I did, or if you enjoyed them, and please tell me what reasons, because I'm always interested in hearing everyone's differing opinions about what they enjoy in media. And let me know, what was your least favorite movie of the year? Or if you want to go on a total rant and list a lot, please, by all means, do not let me stop you. But that is it for me. Please make sure to like, comment your thoughts down below, and make sure to subscribe so you can find out what my best movies of 2025 were, what I'm watching this next year, and keep up with my movie journey. And maybe I'll even do an updated media collection video soon. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!